Michael.
Yeah, good you mentioned that the supplier collects data. I think you're absolutely right, it should be business driven, but there is one, at least there are many, but there's one particular issue that overrides all this. When will somebody else know more about you than you know about you? And that I think is a real concern. I'll give you an example, not exactly in industrial control systems, but at MIT there's the Billion Price database. You can look up the project. In that, they do aggregation, which we've actually done since the mid-1990s on price data from around the world, in this case on the internet, and it's collected billions of prices. They now go and tell governments what their inflation is and going to be, much more accurate than the governments were ever able to predict it. And consistently, they do that. So, in this case, not a big deal. You got a bunch of economists in the government. Maybe they like your tool. They take it. Things get better about predicting inflation. In your organizations, your suppliers are giving you these machines. They're collecting data. Do your operations get commoditized? Do you now control when you switch between batches? Mm-hmm. How much of that can you lose? So there are lots of business issues to look at. But the one in particular, Internet of Things and being able to collect this data, is there somebody doing it better than you already, or will they beat you? And that's a concern.
Yeah. Excellent discussion. I do want to bring the big elephant in the room right now for most companies, for most CEOs, is cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right now, most CEOs are actually worried about some sort of a hack. Right now, unfortunately, the CEOs right now worried more about that and less about Internet of Things. So I think how do you, in my view, they have to feel more comfortable with the cybersecurity situation right now before they worry about just start connecting. So I think how do we tackle that, or are you seeing that's a roadblock in the way for Internet of Things here? And how do we solve that issue? Because, or at least take it off the table. Anybody would like to start? Maybe Professor?
That's an area I'm always happy to start in. Well, I should mention tomorrow, I mean, I've talked to many of you tomorrow, Thursday morning, we have a morning sessions. A number of colleagues are flying down from Boston today. Hopefully, today seems clear, on cybersecurity. And we'll hope you join us to look at some models and some cyber safety issues that have been examined in organizations. Cybersecurity is a very end-to-end process. The Sony case is a great example of a situation where it started with a 0-day, a vulnerability that's out in the wild that no one knows about. It started with spear phishing. It was caught late. The government actually had attribution, defined attribution. They did a terrible job of it. It happened to be around critical infrastructure. Believe it or not, I think it's number 14 under critical infrastructure is the entertainment industry. Not sure why, but it is. It's there. In addition to the attribution that was fairly bungled in the sense that more questions came up than people accepted the attribution, the whole debacle around whether to show the film or not show the film. By the way, this is all based on a really bad film, okay? I mean, it's not based on a major chemical incident somewhere or a major problem in a factory that caused deaths and so on. It's based on a bad film. We imagine it if we had a war and the underlying thing was that film. I mean, that would have been really, really disaster. But we did attribution, which is rare, and we did public relations, and all of it was bungled. Now think about that in your organization, or think about that when it really matters. So we have to start with this holistic thinking, start with the 0 days, the vulnerabilities that are out there. In software world, they're doing a lot to sort of limit the supply and the number of researchers that are doing that. But they're doing some things like bug bounty programs. I don't know if you've all heard of that, where Facebook or Microsoft or Google for many years will buy vulnerabilities from people. People who feel, they want to earn a little on the side, maybe they're patriotic about it and want to, make sure that the industry works and so on and so forth, have an avenue to do this. Do we have the equivalent in industrial control systems? So as a broader organization, should we be thinking about crowdsourcing, having people help us keep our organization secure? If we limit this pool of vulnerabilities, if we reduce that, we're safer. So it starts there. Then we already discussed a little bit, and I'll just mention these are just a few things. The patching issue. Do we have the advantage of being a platform and can resolve these issues as they're found, quickly react to them? Or are we distributed in Windows NT environment, which I think many organizations are, where it's very hard to make these updates? And finally, the PR. I mean, the public relations, the policy, how you get out there in front of an organization. When the government gives attribution and says another country, North Korea, has started this or done this, and the immediate thing that comes out is everyone doubts the fact. That's not so good. That's just not a good way to get started. So I think it provides a really wonderful case to look at how our organizations in industrial controls will perform and the sort of end-to-end process around cybersecurity. And I think taking that seriously and looking at that end-to-end thing it's a very promising thing for the industrial control system environment.
Maybe Mike, how do you tackle that when you are talking to your customers? Does that come up?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't catch 60 Minutes on Sunday night, but I'm sure many of you did. I'll tell you, my email lit up first thing Monday with the number of people. If you didn't catch it, apparently they had someone who had a laptop and they took control of a vehicle from the laptop, right? So they hacked into that. And again, I missed it, but that was the topic of conversation first thing Monday morning. Back to the premise of your point, which is I'm not seeing right now companies not move forward in industrial IoT solutions because of this. They understand it. They want to learn more about it. This is really around risk mitigation and ensuring that the entire stack, and I'll tell you, in one of the areas that we work with, where we're seeing some of the biggest vulnerabilities is actually down at the device layer, because the device doesn't have the memory to actually put the security software that is needed to actually lock it down at that point of failure. Most of our solutions, and I would argue 95% of our solutions or more, that we do in the industrial side, from the device layer all the way back up into the corporate network, it never actually touches the internet, right? We're talking about secure connectivity from the device layer back into the infrastructure. And then what do you do with that data, both in transit and at rest? So we're spending a lot of effort on this. AT&T has over 2,000 security specialists. That's all they do in life, is look at threat management, attacks on the network that hit us each and every day, and how do you take that information and provide it to enterprise customers, in many cases before they even know that there's a threat that's imminent.
Reinhold.
I think we have to discuss this issue on different levels. I think one level is obviously the company level. In the company level, you have to do your homework, meaning you have to have the technology in place, you have to have the procedures and politics in place, you have to get your people involved and informed. So it's basically not only technology, it's definitely as well procedures, or politics and people. So this has to be done on a company level. But on the other hand, and I think the colleague yesterday from the Department of Homeland Security said as well, we have to be very open as companies to communicate what happens in our company in this case, and not to communicate to the press and to the public, because obviously this is sensitive information, but I think to communicate to the organizations in the different countries which are responsible for that. I think in the US it's the Department of Homeland Security. In Germany we have our own organization basically which is responsible for that, and the idea clearly is that we closely as companies cooperate with those organizations, basically let them know if an incident happens, and on the other way around, we get all the information necessary to be protected. So we get all the information of all incidents which are known, and I'm pretty sure there's a communication between all the countries as well about those incidents and about the risks. So I think there has to be a clear communication on all levels about what's going on, and I think this is something which has to be taken very seriously from my point of view.
Stephan, how are you managing this?
So yeah, I want to build on what Michael said. You don't have a choice. It's that simple. You have to go after Internet of Things, industrial internet. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business, right? So it's one of those cases where doing nothing has much higher risk than doing something, even if you assume some risk through cybersecurity. And then in our company, our CTO is responsible for cybersecurity. I mean, it's on his what we call goals and objectives. It has to be at the highest level, and you have to do exactly what all the panelists said. You know, you have to work with the authorities. You have to do your homework. It's a must-do.
Yeah. Well, you hear it. It's a must-do for everybody, folks. But let me maybe go to Professor right now. And maybe what needs to happen is companies got to start becoming more transparent about their security incidents and so forth. What you started with in the plants, maybe companies got to start saying, you know, it's been so many days before we had a cybersecurity incident or something. You know, maybe that's maybe we need to move toward more transparency and so forth. You know, maybe you have any more thought? How could companies get further?
Well, I think the analogy is a good one.
Yeah.
You had the safety one,
Yeah.
right? We have OSHA. You have a safety incident, you have to report it to OSHA.
Exactly.
You have a cybersecurity incident. I think maybe we need an OSHA equivalent to take care of that.
And it probably, if you look back in history, and this is speaking with no knowledge, I'll admit it, if you look back in history, there was the same resistance to the safety reporting as there is to nowadays to the cybersecurity reporting.
I think there's no discussion about that point. The only discussion is who is notified and how it is disclosed. I think that's the only issue. I think there's no doubt that you have to immediately basically notify the according organization. And by the way, in Germany, it's law. The law is passed in the last recently, basically, which really all companies are basically obliged to notify the public authorities. So that is a German law.
Yeah. Well, let me maybe poll again. You know, folks, don't be shy. Yeah, you have any question? Oh, we have a question over here, Tim. Yep. Yeah. Let's. Wait, where did you? There's somebody here. Ashok.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ashok.
Okay, this is Ashok Nangia from 3M. Very nice conversation. Really enjoying it. My comment is that when you talk about companies, they're looking into cybersecurity, but when they talk cybersecurity, they're mostly looking into, from IT perspective, how they protect their business systems. But I think here we are talking about that the future of manufacturing is in software, and how we are going to make the companies aware that manufacturing floor will be connected everywhere, and how we are going to protect that. So it has to really start from, you know, that, hey, there's a gold mine on the manufacturing floor to really reap the benefits. But in order to do that, we need to have cybersecurity. And really, if there's money, then the funding should be available to do this kind of stuff. And I think that's where the issues are, that if you have funding, you can do that. So my question to you is that how we are going to get the awareness into corporate world that there is money to be made by having software on the plant floor, and because of that we need more funding. We compared that with safety systems, and safety has a budget. Safety has vice president level people. So look for your comments. Thank you.
Well, let me maybe reframe the question. I think issue for a lot of the plant people is convincing the management that they need the funding to actually secure their plants from cyber threats. Just like, you know, obviously it maybe is not aware. Any idea maybe, Stephan, do you want to start something? You have any
Sure.
thoughts?
So I think it all starts with providing the value, right? So the people in what we do is when we start this Brilliant Factory initiative, we look at pilot plants, maybe even pilot lines. we're going to prove out the value, the economic value first. So are you answering a question that provides more value for General Electric? If yes, you can think about how do you build out the infrastructure and how do you scale? How do you make sure? So we are lucky because we have GE Intelligent Platforms as an outlet for our products in the factory. And not only can we sell it to internal GE customers, also to external GE customers. So the first question, and I think Reinhold said this, what are you solving for? And what value are you providing for your customer? And in this case, maybe the customer is the manufacturing plant. How do you reduce their cost? And then how do you attack the cybersecurity, which is a requirement? It's a requirement just like any other requirement. You have to write it in, and it will cost money, and it has to be priced out. I think it's part of the manufacturing solution. I think it's hard to go out there and say I want to have a cybersecurity solution, because nobody wants to buy that. That's just not. What is that going to do for me? But if you link it to the application, I think then it becomes pretty clear on why you have to do it.
Thomas, how are you cost justifying building cybersecurity into your systems at your company?
I can only support what you said. I have never seen the case that somebody was asking to support for cybersecurity and did not get the budget, because the awareness is there that we have to protect our IP and our protection assets. Our production assets. What another thing I observe in our very complex production environment in Bayer and also in other chemical companies, that the awareness on the shop floors in the manufacturing areas is not really there. We founded last year a team, an expert team, and we call them vulnerability audits, and moving from factory to factory, and we have an audit catalog and asking the plant managers question. And surprisingly, when we have 10 points, we saw on minimum 5 to 8 points really weaknesses. So simple questions: is your server room locked? Are the USB ports blocked? Is the quarantine computer really a quarantine computer to check software? And if this awareness then starts up in the manufacturing areas, it is crystal clear. It has a lot to do with the behavior of people. So not only having the right software to protect assets, I think that is a thing we can, from the central technology department, we get the money we need, we can develop to provide such softwares. It's really the behavior and the awareness of the people in the manufacturing area, which is still not there. They're using their mobile phones and they are in Facebook, they're sharing data, and they don't really know what risk they do there to offer private things, and the similar behaviors they have in the manufacturing environment. And we have a lot to do, and I like that we had this on the Monday discussion also, on the Monday morning discussion. We have a lot to do to prepare this or generate this awareness really of the people which are working in the environment, and I've never seen that isn't a problem of getting money for projects or so.
Yeah. Any other comment that you have?
Yeah, I think what I say is everything is true what was said so far, so I don't repeat it. But I think for the big company is not the big issue, because we basically say cybersecurity is part of what we implement. So we would never buy a car without wheels, so we don't buy a manufacturing system or no system, IT system without security. But I think the problem is not in the big companies, more in the small and medium enterprises. I think they do not have the resources, or it's more difficult basically to get the resources on board. That at least the discussion we are having in Europe, it's the big companies always can do more, so I'm not saying we are not we're doing enough, but I think the bigger issue is the small and medium enterprises.
Maybe we could move on to the next question. Let's see.
Well, actually, this is kind of on the same one. I guess I don't think anybody in the room would object to the fact to say that industrial control systems are inherently insecure just by their design. My question actually is to the panel in terms of what are you doing to design security into your solutions, i.e., secured by design your solutions, which is a very different concept than saying we're going to add security into the solution. What we're saying is, what are you doing to make sure that security is integral to the solution and cannot be disconnected? And so a couple of examples I have. Some of you provide hardware. The hardware is delivered to your customers. It comes with a user ID of, root. My question is, have you looked at changing passwords so that every unique, piece of hardware has a unique password so that it isn't commonly known? Or in the wireless space for devices, we have SMS wake up, shutting that down before it gets to the customer, and then they can decide whether they want to activate it or deactivate it.
Well, we certainly don't have many suppliers. We are mostly customers here. But obviously, you are asking for your suppliers to, provide you products that are, have, especially today anyway, Have you seen a change at your companies that now security is a requirement when you buy a solution? Maybe I think that's the key. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Let me answer in that direction. We have strong rules regarding automation in our facilities because we're really aware on the cybersecurity issues, and the strong rules is that we have the different automation layers, and the automation layers should be mainly physically disconnected. So that is, I would say, one of the basics to protect our assets. And if suppliers are coming in and install machines, or centrifuges is a good example. Most of the centrifuges have an internet access. So simply because of the rules, we do not allow, that is from the supplier, an access to that layer. So that is really what I can only propose. Define clear rules based on the automation in your companies. Define clear layers, how software get in, how machines coming in, and how data are coming out. And really define the interfaces and standardize the interfaces. And this physical or software interfaces must be then protected. But you need a clear overview. Where are your channels? Which of information is going upwards and downwards? And try really to separate the automation level.
At AT&T, Mike, how do you work with your customers when these questions come up?
There are a couple points. When we talk about scaling industrial IoT solutions, in many cases we're talking about customers that have, at this point already, control of hundreds of thousands, or even in some cases millions of widgets that they manage. And so you have to think about industrial grade, scalable platforms that can manage those assets, right? And so that does push down rules and policies relative to device management. I mentioned earlier that we keep, for the majority of the customers, the traffic off the internet in terms of how we actually network from device all the way back into their infrastructure. But I actually would challenge you to think beyond just cybersecurity as we know it. I want you to think about, if you truly have hundreds of thousands or millions of assets out there, think about, for example, and this is probably not one of our better moments, but it gets back to the point of tell the story so others don't trip over the same tripwire. We had a situation actually here in the state of Florida about 3 or 4 years ago. A company put a smart grid meter on the side of a home. And what actually happened was somebody tampered with the meter, took the SIM card out of it, stuck it in their laptop, and went to Asia. Now, 30 days later, when the bill showed up from putting that SIM in a laptop in Asia, you can imagine the utility was not thrilled. They had multi-thousands of dollars of invoicing to deal with. But from my perspective, and of course we settled that bill, but the point that I would make to that utility, or anybody else who's managing thousands or millions of units potentially, is to say, first rule, the data coming off a smart meter perhaps only passes a meg of data per day. There should have been an alert that said, oh, by the way, I'm seeing a gig of data now in some other foreign device. An alarm should have gone off. Another alarm should have gone off that said, that smart meter is in the state of Florida. It's fixed to a house in Miami. Based on a geofencing algorithm, it never should have left Miami-Dade County. Another alert should have gone off, right? So the point is, there are tools. I think the unfortunate situation is many people don't take advantage of some of the tools that are already in place to secure the assets.
Excellent. Michael, at the end, Professor,
the smart grid example also, there's another case where there was a smart grid which communicated with other smart grid controllers and operated everybody else's house. Another incident along those lines. I forget the case. I was just going to mention for a second that to Thomas, if you look back at the TJ Maxx case and also the Sony case, both of them were budgetary issues that were pulled because of reasons. That one was an update to the wireless network that was decided not to do because the Christmas season was coming and so on and so forth. So we do get things like that. Sony was a little less clear because most experts say that even if they would have done the budget upgrade, there's a 90% chance they would have missed it. So there are these cases out there that show, yes, it's really budget. It's to me, it's a bit of a mindset. We're spoiled. We have made hundreds of trillions of dollars in productivity. Yeah, there is no question that the digital age is amazing. So, and we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on cybersecurity. The numbers don't match up. So we sort of have this, in a way, it's a bit laissez-faire. I'm glad to hear that it's not from this panel. I mean, that it is sort of a requirement. But from a mindset in industry, in the environment, we're moving very fast. We're making lots of money. And we hear about these cybersecurity incidences, and some of them get bungled, and they affect our credit cards, and we're not happy about it, and so on and so forth. But we really don't have the too big to fail, which, by the way, too big to fail happens multiple times. So we don't have the mortgage-backed security incident that occurs in industrial control systems yet. And let's not hope that occurs. But there must have been, and this is again, I don't want to overdo the analogy because I'm not studied in it. There must have been a tremendous amount of similar thinking around safety. Mm-hmm. And so just going back to saying, though I don't think the orders of magnitude were the same. I'm sure at times we cut safety, speaking broader audience, there were times in history where safety was cut for the sake of larger profits. Never on the orders of hundreds or thousands in the magnitude. But that they were, and then that just sort of was a bad idea. And it became a bad idea. So I think we have to get out of this, as people, and what we see in the environment, what we see in other industries, we got to get out of this mindset of that multiple orders of magnitude of profit difference, and that this is just if it happens on our credit cards, they just pay the bill. If it happens on, so as a society, we're learning everyone just takes care of it, right? That can't be in industrial control systems. That mindset has to be different, is my feeling.
And I think it is, so just like, I worked for General Motors and now for General Electric, and both companies have the same attitude towards safety, and it's spelled out. Safety is an overriding priority. Yeah. It's the top of the list. We just have to get cybersecurity at that same level. That's what we have to do. And I can say that for GE, we are there because we want to be in software. We know software will require cybersecurity. It's an overriding priority of our budget allocation. This is the way it is.
Yeah. We have just a couple of minutes left. So one last comment from each of you, something that perhaps we haven't talked about that is important. Maybe we could start with you, Stephan.
Well, I think, the most important part for me is this is super exciting, right? I mean, there's honestly no better time than all of you being in industrial automation, industrial controls. I cannot believe we are allowed to do this. And I think we have to think about how we acquire the skills we need. We need to upgrade our software skills. We all need to know how we do Hadoop databases and all that kind of stuff. But it's a fantastic opportunity to do what we wanted to do for a long time. And at least I can say that for GE, we are getting the attention and the money to do it. So, we probably have like a 5-year span where we can actually make a big splash and make a huge improvement for our companies. And if we don't take advantage of it, we only have ourselves to blame. That's what I think.
Excellent. Thomas?
I like that world. It's really super exciting, and it's super exciting to be a part of that development. And I see the whole world is changing. The whole supply chain is changing. As I said on the beginning, I see this customizing of everything, and it's a lot to do for the traditional industries to find their roles in that. And also comes up a lot of new enterprises which will play a role in that, and I'm really looking forward to observe that further. And I want to underline this safe security topic again, and I like your idea, the same role which plays safety for us in the past. If these upcoming things, we should take care that the security of our things we are doing here is getting the same level that we can protect our values which are generating with these new upcoming things.
Excellent. Reinhold.
I think there was a lot of discussion some time ago about old economy and new economy. And I personally believe that the digitally transformed old economy will be the new economy. So I think from my point of view, because companies like ThyssenKrupp and Bayer and some other companies are really producing something, they're creating real value, not only services. I'm not saying that service is a bad thing, service is great, but if you create real value, you have an opportunity to be sustainable. And for that reason, I think all those companies, if they do it right, if they go through the right transformation from the classical approach to the digital approach, we have a huge opportunity to be much more successful in future. And this is true for all those companies which are creating value. And this is basically what it comes down to. We basically to think about how can we create more value for our customers, and then we have a right to exist, basically.
We're moving into a hyper-connected world. We know that in our personal lives with our cell phones. You think about how this plays out in the industrial side. There are analysts that believe between now and 2020, you'll have somewhere between 26 billion to 50 billion, depending on the analyst, connected machines to the internet. That's staggering. That is truly staggering. So you have to think about, as a company, where do you fit into that equation? Are you on that journey? Have you started the journey? Do you have the internal skill set and the resources? If not, how do you bring in the right type of trusted partners that can help you realize your vision? The other thing, we didn't spend a lot of time on it today, but I often get asked about, is IoT or industrial IoT really about operational efficiency or driving new products and revenue for the company? And I'll tell you, for many of us on the stage, it's actually about both. And the company that can actually start to think about how you not only drive operational expense out of the business, but turn that into a new revenue stream for your company, that's a golden opportunity to transform your business.
So with regard to cybersecurity, we've talked a lot about it. I'll leave it to you all. There's a session tomorrow. You can also visit our website, ic3.mit.edu, and get more information about that. With regard to Internet of Things, Internet of Things have been around for quite a while at MIT at the Media Lab. They've done a lot of research in the past. But in a way, I view this audience as being the real experts in Internet of Things. You have been running the Internet of Things for years and years. I mean, whether it's radio controlled, whether it's just inside the plant, you are experts at Internet of Things. The only thing that seems to be missing or coming is the scale and the value. And so, I encourage you to be the leaders of the Internet of Things. You have more things that are able to be part of that than most any other organization I've been around. And so I think it's a very exciting opportunity, and it's really a matter of the business issues that we've mentioned many times, as where's the value in it for me, and what's going to happen if I don't do that. And so I think this is a really exciting group for Internet of Things.
Well, this is an excellent point for us to leave, and please join me giving our super exciting panel a hand, and hopefully this is getting a little more exciting for you guys. This is a terrific, couldn't thank you more. I think great discussion, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.